Hey guys, it's Brian coming to you from the TST Industries garage. As you can see behind me, I have a gorgeous 2020 model year S1000RR from BMW. It's a great looking bike, but as you guys know, OEM bikes come with OEM parts, and some of those parts are a little less appealing to the eye, namely the fender that is on this motorcycle. So we are going to go ahead and install our newly developed undertail closeout. So that's going to be this black anodized aluminum machined piece. It's going to be a two-piece design. That is so that we could get our signals in there. The plugs on those signals are a little bit larger than typical, so we had to kind of rework our thinking on how we designed our undertail closeouts, but we have gotten that done for you guys. So the kind of variants that we're going to be going through today are the closeout only, so that's for you racers, or as we develop a little bit further, we are looking into developing a taillight for this motorcycle. So that would be in the case where we develop a taillight, you won't have to remount those OEM signals. But because it's not fully developed yet, we're not coming to market with that just yet, we do have an interim solution. So that's going to be the closeout with the relocation bracket for your OEM signals. That is an option for you guys even when we do develop those signals, if you want to keep that OEM stuff. So that is going to pair with our adjustable fender eliminator. In this instance, in the future, we do have a low mount bracket that is developed right now. We're just kind of waiting on those signals to come to fruition. So the installation is pretty straightforward, guys. I'm going to walk you through some of the different variants for this closeout, but they are mainly the same. So I'm going to show you just briefly on the table what some of the other variants might look like, but we will go ahead and install the bracket for the signals as well as the adjustable fender eliminator on the closeout. Let's jump right into it, guys. All right, so our first step here, since we are going to install our adjustable fender eliminator, I do want to go ahead and assemble that on the table. So we're going to move some of this hardware out of the way. Now you'll probably be seeing a fair bit more hardware than you'll have in your kit. Depending on which variant you actually end up ordering, you'll have different hardware slightly. So let me move my closeout and whatnot out of the way for the time being. Okay, so we have our license plate bracket. We have our two mounting ear style little bosses, two of the brackets that actually will mount the boss to the bracket, and then some hardware. So what we're going to want to do is take one of our mounting bosses and one of our little J-bend brackets. We're going to want to take that concentric ring, not slot, the concentric ring, place it over the boss. We're going to want to take an M6 fastener with a washer, place that washer on that M6 fastener, through that bracket, and into our boss. I would suggest adding a little bit of blue Loctite to this element, but for our purposes, this will be coming off later, so we don't want to add that right now. So go ahead and tighten that down. Don't go to bottom out. Give yourself some adjustability there. We're going to do the other side now. So make sure that you could lay this out on the table, because you're going to want the little lobe of the mounting boss to be facing towards the rear of the motorcycle, and then you're going to want that bracket to go down and out on the outside of that lobe. So washer on screw. Again, a little bit of blue Loctite wouldn't hurt here. This is your plate that you're mounting. You don't want that to go tumbling down the road at any point. Okay, so let's verify before we move on. We have our two bosses mounted up with our J-bend brackets. Those are going to slope down in respect to considering this lobe being facing the rear of the motorcycle. So you'll see what I'm talking about there. We can go ahead and grab our license plate bracket. We have an M5 countersunk. We're going to want to drop that through one of the center holes on either side. And then from there, we're going to place our J-bend bracket over that, the M5 nylock nut, place that on the screw. Let's go ahead and tighten this down. I'm going to use a 3mm and an 8mm wrench, 3mm Allen. Again, leave yourself a little bit of adjustability there. So you do just want to confirm that the bracket comes in and back. So these two mounting bosses are going to end up being very close to each other. So let's mount the other one up. So again, countersunk screw through one of the center holes, through the slot of the bracket, M5 nylock, just before bottom out so that you do still have a little bit of that adjustability in there. So you can see I can slide these brackets around a little bit, get them in a happy spot once we're ready to do so. At this point, we can go ahead and switch over to our undertail closeout. So we're going to want to grab the center portion of that closeout. Now, if you ordered the variant in which you do not have a license plate bracket or a relocation bracket for your signals, you will be provided with two M5 countersunk screws. So you'd throw those through the center. You'd throw a nut on the back of each of them. And then you would have just an undertail closeout. So that could be used in the future with our low mount bracket. That will have to come if and when our signal / taillight does get developed for this bike model. So at this time, we're not going to be installing it in that variant. So I'm going to remove those countersunk screws. Talk about the next variant now, which would be if you are just relocating your license plate. So that would be in the instance where you have an aftermarket solution for signals and/or in the future when we have ours developed. That would be just the adjustable license plate bracket and the closeout. So that would mount up to the closeout like that through those two center holes. You would at that point then use shorter M6 by 12 screws. So that would receive a washer. It would go through the back of the closeout and then down into that boss of that adjustable license plate bracket. But again, we are going to be relocating our OEM signals today, so that is not the variant that I will be continuing the installation with. So I'm going to set these two screws off to the side, and we are now at this point going to be moving forward with our relocation bracket, our adjustable license plate mount, and the closeout. So you're going to have two M6 by 16s, two M5 by 30 countersunks, two washers. We're going to want to take our center portion of our closeout, drop the M5 countersunk screws into those outer holes. We're going to want to take our relocation bracket for the signals, making sure that these lobes face towards the front of the motorcycle. So if you can picture where this is going to be up into the bike, those are going to want to face back towards me or towards the front. At this point, we can go ahead and take the two washers, drop them onto our M6 by 16s. So with our bracket on top of our closeout, those two countersunk screws are actually held captive. So we can go ahead and turn this over, making sure we hold on to our bracket while we do this. Drop those M6 by 16s down into the center holes. And then we're going to kind of do a balancing act here. But we want to take our adjustable license plate bracket and mount it up, sandwiching that relocation bracket in between the closeout and the license plate mount. I would throw a little bit of blue Loctite on these two screws that I'm tightening down right now, but being that our installation is going to come off shortly after we complete this video, I am not doing that in this instance. So make sure that these guys are still free floating. I didn't go to bottom out just yet. I want to turn it back over. I want to make sure that the two bosses for our adjustable plate mount here are as parallel as possible. So this signal mount bracket will actually help you do that. You do also want to make sure that your signal mount bracket is centered. It does have a little bit of adjustability left and right. So you want to try to make sure that that's centered over those two countersunk screws that we have installed. I like where everything is for me, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down on the back. Go to bottom out, and then a little bit more. Just tighten those down, make sure they're not going anywhere. So at this point, we're going to have to move to the motorcycle. I'm going to need to grab my OEM signals so that we could remount them to our bracket here, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with the installation. All right, guys, so we're back here in the rear of the motorcycle. We will need, at some point, a T25 and your key, actually. So I went ahead and grabbed both of those. Just gonna remove the passenger seat. We don't need it just yet, but it's what I like to start with. Leave my key right there. Set this off to the side. So at this point, we do actually have to go ahead and pull off these two side panels. Those are going to be the only portions of the bike that we have to remove, minus, of course, the fender. So that's going to be a T25 and then a single screw right here underneath. Keep that screw handy. This is where things can get a little scary, I won't lie. So we're gonna go ahead and take our hand and wedge it up in between the subframe. We're gonna pull out this way at first. We wanna release those fasteners. I'm gonna follow the under portion of this plastic up to where that screw just came out of, kind of wedging my fingers underneath, still pulling down a little bit. There we go. And then at this point, you can do this by hand. I like to use this little plastic wedge. So I'm gonna take this little plastic wedge and in between the center fairing and these side panels, I'm gonna wedge that in and start to pry up on the fasteners that are in that region. There we have it. Now you will see those fasteners that I was talking about. So those do just pop in. The one in the rear probably happened a little too quick for you to actually see it, but that does have to come back to get removed. But as you're prying up on this, it's kind of already pushing that in that direction. So with this panel removed, I'm gonna set that off to the side. I'm gonna repeat the process on the other side. It is identical. There we have it, our second panel. So with those body panels removed, we are going to have to disconnect our electricals here. So that is going to be for the both signals / tail light and our license plate light. On this right side of the motorcycle here, we do have just one signal. So that's going to be achieved by lifting up on the small lock mechanism and pulling out the connecting plug, like so. So you'll see there was a small lock mechanism there that I was able to lift up on and remove that. You're gonna have license plate light and signal on this side. They do remove in a similar fashion. So I got license plate light and then turn signal. So I'm gonna go ahead and unroute these. Is that a word? Because I made it one just now. I'm gonna remove these from where they were routed for now. Now I have seen that these have been routed underneath this diagnostic plug. If that is the case, that's just two T25s that will remove that. That was not the case in this motorcycle, but I have seen in some installation videos that that is the case. All right, so with our electrical connectors removed, we can go ahead and actually remove the OEM fender. That is going to be done with the two T25 head Torx screws that are in here. So we're just gonna go ahead, locate those, set those off to the side. We will not need them. When you're doing the second one, make sure that you support the fender. It will start to drop down on you. Okay, so we can now go ahead and remove our OEM fender. And I want to make sure that our wires route nicely down through the hole. There we have it. OEM fender removed. Next step is going to be to grab these signals, remount them to our bracket, and then install a closeout. All right, so with our OEM fender removed, we are going to want to go ahead and start to take our signals off. So to start that process, we're going to flip this on over. We have 3 zip ties that we're going to want to cut here. Be careful not to catch your wire, obviously. All right, so with our zip ties cut, our wires are now free. So you're going to want to go ahead and grab a T27 Torx bit, as well as a 10mm wrench. So that T27 is going to go into this screw that is mounting the signal. You're going to want to grab that nut from the other side, securing it, and then go ahead and break these guys loose. Go ahead and remove that screw and that nut. We're gonna wanna keep those as we are gonna reuse them here in a moment. Then we can go ahead and take our signal. You're gonna wanna rotate it down, and then it will just actually pop out like such. Gonna wanna route our wire through. These are designed so that that plug can actually slip through as well. So that is gonna be our left side. We're gonna wanna keep track of that. Set that over there. And repeat for the right side. Screw out, and then again, rotate down, pop out, help our wire navigate a little bit. Go ahead, route that connector out. This is gonna be our right side signal. All right, this fender no longer serves a purpose. I'm gonna remove my plate so that I can retain it for the future. This fender can now go in the trash, the spare parts bin, wherever you'd like. All right, so we're now gonna swap over to our closeout bracket. So we're gonna go ahead and remount these signals to make sure that our right did remain our right. I don't think, now don't quote me, I don't think there's anything that would go wrong if you did actually swap these out, but I like to keep things consistent as the way they came. So I'm gonna take my connector, route it through my relocation bracket, pull that signal up in, and just as we had done on the OEM unit, you're gonna wanna press this in. There will be a small locating tab. Press that in, rotate forward. There will be a point where those holes will be concentric. It's at that point that we're gonna take our OEM screw, drop it down in, our OEM nut, we're gonna go ahead and crank that down. Now you do want to tighten those down as best you can. Obviously don't go too tight. You are fastening plastic to metal, so the plastic would give way. And repeat for the left. All right, so that is going to be as much as we need to do here on the bench. Let's go ahead and bring our parts over to the motorcycle. We are ready to actually install our closeout and license plate bracket. All right, so over here on the bike, as you saw earlier, our closeout is a two-piece design. So to make things a little bit easier on myself, I went ahead and grabbed some blue tape. Just gonna take two decently sized pieces, attach them to the corners of this closeout, self-locate this up into the geometry that it matches. Pretty good fit in there, so not too much to question at this step. Just tape that up in there. Make sure that it gives you one less thing to think about. Because at this point, we're gonna take the other portion of our closeout that has our signals and our license plate bracket. We're going to take our wires and route them up into the OEM position through that recess in the sub tray. We're gonna pull those up in. Then we're gonna wanna locate our two countersunk screws into those OEM accepting riv nuts. And with those in position, you're gonna wanna make sure that those first couple threads are starting to go in nicely. You can access the heads of these bolts from within that relocation bracket. So we're gonna do a little bit on each side. Since they are captive, it will kind of make the system go wonky if you try to bottom one out first. So just a little bit on each, making sure that our threads are going in very nicely. There we go. See what I'm saying? As I'm pulling on each side, it kind of cattywampus goes the other direction. All right, so as we're getting a little bit closer, we're gonna wanna route our wires into those recesses in the undertail closeout. So you'll see those will be right up next to the bracket. At this point, if we were running a license plate light, you would have wanted to have routed that up in with one of these OEM license plate, or sorry, OEM signal wires. I would choose the one that's closer to the side that actually comes up through the bike. So that would be here on this right side signal. We're not mounting that up today, but if you were, you would want to route that up now at this point. So we're gonna keep tightening down, making sure that those wires are happy in a spot that they are not gonna get pinched in between our brackets or anything like that. There we go. We can go ahead and remove our tape at this point. That bracket is now captive between the bike and our inner portion of the closeout. And then little by little on each side, just keep tightening down. You'll see that your gaps and tolerances will start to close up a little bit as we tighten this down. These are M3 heads, so you don't want to obviously go too tight. We have nice, consistent look there. Everything is even. Our bracket is parallel. All right, so before we button everything up here, obviously we're gonna need to reconnect our signals, but before I throw my side panels back on, I wanna make sure that I have connected the proper sides. So obviously we want it to fire the right signal. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug both of them in. Come over to the other side. Reroute them back into their kind of OEM locations. Go ahead and flip our bike on. Ah, good thing I checked. I do actually have them reversed. I'll fix that. One last double check. Stranger things have happened where I've plugged in the same one twice. Left is left, right is right. And we have brake. All right, so at this point we can go ahead, kind of tidy up our wires a little bit. I like to just do a little double wrap in here. They will get captured by those fairings. If you want to throw a zip tie on there, that's not a horrible idea. Just kind of tuck those guys up in, make sure we have decent amount of trunk space. Can actually use that OEM wire routing in there. Keep it tidy. All right, at this time I'm gonna go ahead and grab my body panels again. We're gonna throw those back on. We'll put our license plate on and actually adjust the angle and everything. So I'll start over here on the right side. It's just gonna be the exact opposite of what we did. So this little back tab here is gonna have to locate itself first. And then we're gonna go ahead and navigate those little clips down in, pressing as we go. Then I like to do this one underneath, and then the two in the front, so just press in on that panel. Make sure everything's happy. Very cool. Take our T25 and that torque screw that came out originally, and repeat the process on this left side. All right, so we have our body panels back on. I'm gonna throw my passenger seat and or cowl back into position. Our last step here is gonna be to tighten down our license plate bracket As you remember, we didn't actually do that in the beginning. We wanted to make sure everything was centered, level, and in a happy position before we actually cranked it down. So let me grab my license plate. So I just want to pick a plate angle now that I have my plate on there. Something that's obviously not going to hit the tire. If you run it down there, you are probably at risk of actually having your tire come up to your plate. So you want to pick something that's obviously visible and a little swept. I like that spot. All right, with that tightened down, our plate is mounted. We are ready to roll again. Now, this is kind of an interim solution. As I had mentioned in the beginning, we are currently kind of developing, thinking about what we want to do in terms of using something other than the OEM signals / taillight. So if you're watching in the future, it is possible that that's already out. Definitely take a peek at our website at tstindustries.com if you're interested in this solution and or that future solution that I have been talking about. We will potentially be offering a low mount for your license plate as well, which we find a lot of people like. We actually prefer that here at TST, so it is something that we are currently developing. But if you like this product or this installation, go ahead and check out our website at tstindustries.com. If you like watching guys work on bikes, installing parts, check out our YouTube channel. We have tons of videos installing almost everything that we make, and even products that we don't make, but products that we stand by. It's been Brian at TST Industries. I'll catch you guys next time.